Good morning, everybody. Matt Modak here to give you some NBA player prop bangers for tonight's NBA betting slate. We're talking Wednesday, October 30th. It's almost Halloween. Everybody's going to eat a bunch of candy. I have 4 NBA player props for you guys to lock in. 4 players who are entering the splash zone, who we're going to see are going to splash around, get wet, have a good game tonight. Before we get into that, we do have to do a recap from yesterday, which I got to admit, one of the worst betting days I've ever had in my entire life. Not from the results in terms of units lost. We were down 0.65 units yesterday, which is not horrible. But the way in which all 3 of the plays that lost you see on the screen were just absolutely brutal. Now, 3 of them I gave out on my YouTube channel. 2 of them I gave out later. All 5 are being officially tracked. Just brutal. So I'll be quick because nobody wants to hear me complain. That's not fun viewing. I understand that, but I just need to vent a little bit. So we had De'Aaron Fox 7+ assists. He got to 7 early in the third quarter. I went to bed, thought that play was cashed. I woke up, he ended with 6 assists. Somehow the NBA took away an assist from De'Aaron Fox and he did not get one the rest of the game. That's an L. I had Keegan Murray over 14.5 points. I went to bed with him at 10 early in the third quarter. He ended with exactly 14. L. I had Brandon Pajemski. I had him over 9.5 rebounds plus assists. Admittedly, I didn't watch any of that game, but I was told that he had 3 of them, 3 rebounds plus assists taken away over the course of the game. With no stat corrections, 2 of those plays would have cashed, would have been an amazing night with 1 hook. But unfortunately, that was not the case, so that goes down in the record books as 2 wins and 3 losses, down 0.65 units on the year. The reason why that was so frustrating was because we had gotten on a roll with our NBA plays. We had been profitable 2 days in a row, and I went to bed thinking that we had a 3rd straight profitable day. So to wake up and see how things went was just tough. On the year, down a little bit over 3 units, which isn't terrible in the grand scheme of things. I was just hoping that we would have a better day and that we were kind of getting ourselves into green on the year. Regardless, very, very confident in the 4 plays that we have for tonight, which we can get right into. So play number 1, Donovan Mitchell over 25.5 points, -105 odds at DraftKings. So this is a number that, despite that Mitchell's only gone over in 1 of 4 games this year, he's actually played really, really well. He's had a pretty decent start to the year. The problem is the Cavs have just, every game's been a blowout basically. 3 of 4 games have been decided by 10 points. 2 of 4 games have been decided by 15 points. So he hasn't really had to do much, and because of that, his minutes have been hovering around 30 per game. You figure in important games like the Lakers, LeBron James coming to Cleveland, that he's going to play more minutes, that he's going to need to play more minutes because they're not going to have blowouts. And here's a very, very scientific thought. The more minutes he plays, the more opportunity he has to score points. You're not going to get that kind of analysis anywhere. But I mentioned he's gone over this number, 25.5, in 1 of 4 games. He scored 30 points in that one. And then one of the games he went under, he scored exactly 25 points, which that would have been a brutal hook, but it shows that his floor has been pretty good. And again, the first 2 games, 10+ point victories that you don't expect to happen. He's going to need to play more minutes in this one. With all that in mind, the fact that we're projecting him, let's say 34 minutes. With all that in mind, this is a great matchup for Donovan Mitchell and his scoring profile against how you need to beat the Lakers. Lakers have a good defense, but the way in which you beat them is the exact way in which Donovan Mitchell plays. You know, the Lakers don't allow a ton at the 3-point line. They don't allow a ton at the rim. They're going to let players pull up from mid-range, pull up from the 2-point range in general. On the year, the Lakers have the 4th most pull-up shot attempts in the NBA. They've also allowed the 2nd highest frequency of shots against them be pull-up opportunities, mostly from 2-point range. They're allowing the 4th most pull-up 2-point attempts specifically, and they're about 10th in terms of 3-point attempts. So much higher frequency of 2-point field goal pull-up attempts against them. That's how Mitchell scores. I mean, he scores from 3-point range as well, but he's a pull-up shooter, and he's very good at doing so. Now, if you look at his raw stats, he's only scored the 13th most points per game from pull-ups in the NBA. Literally all 12 players above him have played more minutes than Donovan Mitchell. Again, he's averaging about 30 minutes per game. Every player above him is averaging at least 32 minutes per game, and 9 of them are averaging 34 minutes per game. So you get 4 more minutes for Donovan Mitchell. He's scoring a lot more, not a lot. He's scoring more points with an extra 4 minutes. And admittedly, another reason why I like this play, teams have not run a ton of pick and rolls against the Lakers. Admittedly, if you look at like the possessions against, it's not super high. But when teams run the pick and roll, they do have success doing so. The Lakers have allowed points on the 9th highest rate when teams run pick and roll against them, to the ball handler, I should say, the ninth highest rate specifically to the pick and roll ball handler. The Lakers are also allowing the 6th most points per game via isolation on the 5th most points per possession. Now, on the season, it's early, but Garland's actually scoring more points out of the pick and roll than Mitchell. That's mostly come from outlier shooting. If you look at like his effective field goal percentage, it's higher than what it would be over the course. Like that's going to normalize. It's basically what I'm saying. And he's not doing it by pulling up nearly as much as Donovan Mitchell. Donovan Mitchell pulls up about 10% at a higher rate than Darius Garland. So much better for Spida. I think he's going to have a great one. Hopefully he hits at least 26 points to cash out this play. Next up, we're going Jordan Poole, 25 plus points, minus 105 odds at FanDuel. Now, Jordan Poole, 25 points is probably a pretty scary number. He's actually played decently well this year. He's got a great matchup against the Atlanta Hawks, and now we have no Kyle Kuzma, which you would expect is increased usage rate for Jordan Poole. So these two teams just played each other, and Poole went over this number. So admittedly, we're not doing what I love to do, which is fade recent results, but Poole went over in that game. Kyle Kuzma played 40 minutes in that game as well. Now, not all of those attempts that Kuzma takes are going to be given to Jordan Poole, but he's going to take some extra shots with him out. And, you know, Poole's only played 3 minutes off the floor without Kuzma, so we don't have a ton of data to go off of this year specifically, but, and this is per RotoWire, he averages about 25, 26 points per 36 minutes in that 3 minute span that Kuzma's been off and he's been on. So basically, if you extrapolate out his scoring in the 3 minutes, which I get is not perfect, he would average about just under 26 points per 36 minutes. And without Kuzma, he might not get to the 36 number. Probably is going to get to 34, 35. He played 32 minutes in 2 of the first 3 games. So a little bit more, a little bit higher minutes played without Kuzma. And as I mentioned, this is an excellent matchup against a horrible, horrible Hawks defense. So far this year, the Hawks are allowing literally the most points per game to pick and roll ball handlers in the entire NBA. And I get that it's early, but they've allowed 27.5 points per game to pick and roll ball handlers. The next closest team is at 23.5. Now, teams, because they're so bad at it, teams are also running a lot of pick and rolls against them too. So if you want to look at points per possession, they're allowing the 4th most points per possession to pick and roll ball handlers. So it's bad either way. And when you have Trae Young on defense, yeah, they're going to want to target him, run him in a bunch of action. It's not a surprise that Jordan Poole has run the most pick and roll as the ball handler on the Wizards. He scores the most points as the pick and roll ball handler as well. And Kuzma is second on the team in both of those categories. So that's kind of why, another reason why we can see, why we should see increased usage for Jordan Poole in a good matchup. I feel good about backing him, even though he's definitely a player that is easy to make fun of, but I think he's going to get to 25 points tonight. Next up, our third pick of the video, Jaylen Brown over 4.5 first quarter points, plus 106 odds at Caesars. Now, Brown has not quite been the first quarter king. I mean, it's 4 games, so like let's calm down a little bit. But if we're looking at these 4 games, he has not quite been the first quarter king this year that he was last year. But this price, this line being at 4.5 is crazy. And the fact that it's being priced for an over at plus money is also crazy. Even though Brown has had relatively a slower start in first quarters than we're used to seeing, he scored 5 or more points in 2 of the 4 games so far. More importantly are the attempts. He's attempted at least 5 field goal attempts in 3 of the first 4 games, and at least 2 3-pointers in 3 of the first 4 games as well. If you're telling me he's going to get up 5 shots against the Pacers defense that he has had a ton of success against, and 2 of them are going to be from 3-point range, I will gladly take my chances on him getting to at least 5 points. Now, I'm guessing part of the reason why this number is priced so low is because his minutes have been weird to start the year. Like, he's twice played around 8 minutes in the first quarter. He's another 2 games played around 6 minutes in the first quarter. I didn't show that he had any, he was in foul trouble or anything, so I'm not 100% sure what's up with those minutes. But what I do know is that last year in the regular season, he averaged 9.4 minutes in the first quarter. So maybe he won't get to the 9.5 minutes tonight, but the guess is that those 6-minute quarters, that's going to be more of an anomaly than anything, that we won't see a ton over the course of the rest of the regular season. And again, last year, Jaylen Brown was historically a fast starter. He scored 5 or more points in 80% of the regular season games last year. He did it in 53 of 68 games. Normally, Jaylen Brown's first quarter over under was like 6.5 for relatively even money. Getting it at 4.5 is crazy. And that also includes, he did it in every single regular season game against the Pacers last year. And he actually scored 6 or more points in all of those games as well. So not only did he hit the 5 number, but he hit 6 or more in all of those games as well. And the Pacers defense last year was a defense you wanted to target with Jaylen Brown's scoring profile. They cannot stop players that are driving to the rim, guys that ISO a ton, guys that run a ton of pick and roll, really guys that drive to the rim can have a lot of success against the Pacers. And it seems to be the case this year as well. The Pacers have allowed the second most points per game via isolation in the NBA. Now, Tatum has been amazing running ISO so far. He scored the most ISO points on the Celtics, the second most ISO points overall in the NBA. But Jaylen Brown is not that far behind him. He scored the second most points via ISO, unsurprisingly, on the Celtics, and the 12th most points per game via ISO overall. But he's done well when gotten the opportunity. It's just been more Tatum to start the year. Brown has scored the sixth most points per possession when ISOing. But, so yeah, Tatum has been scoring more, without a doubt. Tatum's first quarter over-under is 8.5, with the over priced at -113. So we're getting essentially half that number for plus money. This is a great play, in my opinion, on Jaylen Brown, his first quarter point prop. Let's hope it comes to fruition. Last up, our fourth and final pick of the video, Tyrese Halliburton, 20 plus points, plus 115 odds at DraftKings. Now, it's been admittedly a rough start from a scoring perspective for Tyrese Halliburton. Even the last 2 games where he's been scoring a respectable amount of points, he really didn't shoot that well from the field. 2 games ago, he scored 22 points against the Sixers. Last game, he scored 19 points against the Magic. That was while shooting 8 of 18 and 6 of 15 from the field. So he's leaving a ton of room for improvement just based on shooting at a higher percentage. Like the law of averages are going to normalize. He's going to average higher field goal percentage than what he's had so far, which means that we leave opportunity for him to shoot at an above average rate and kind of an outlier good rate, which hopefully that happens tonight. And, taking guards that run pick and roll, that's been a system play for the Celtics for 2 years now. It was the case last year. It's continued into this season as well. To start the year, the Celtics have allowed the most points per game to point guards in the entire NBA. And it's all about how they play defense, right? They allow a ton of points to high usage guards that run a ton of pick and roll and that are capable of pulling up. It's all because of their coverage on defense. They play drop coverage with their center, so guards that can run pick and roll have the opportunity to pull up and score points doing so. As of right now, the Celtics are allowing the third most points per game via isolation, which is a little bit interesting because normally it's via the pick and roll, but they've kind of been getting had via isolation. They've allowed the second most points per possession and the highest field goal percentage allowed via isolation. They allowed the third most points per game via isolation, and then separately, they're allowing the second most points per possession and the highest effective field goal percentage via pick and roll ball handler. So teams aren't, at this point in the year, running a ton of pick and rolls against the Celtics. That's just matchup based more than anything. But when teams are running pick and rolls against the Celtics, they're having success doing so again. Second most points per possession and the highest effective field goal percentage to pick and roll ball handlers. Now, this year, they're not allowing as much pull-up three-point attempts or pull-up 2 points or above the break three-pointers as they did last year. But with a similar style of defense, the guess is that those numbers are going to normalize and that they're going to be closer to what they were last year. And last year, the Celtics were top 2 in terms of pull-up three-point attempts and above the break three-point attempts and just pull-up attempts in general allowed. Now, I will admit, scoring out of isolation, scoring out of the pick and roll is admittedly not Halliburton's game. He tries to be more of a facilitator, more of a passer, but he can do it, and he has shown that he will be aggressive when needed. And, it's 5 games into the year, but the Pacers are sitting at 1-3. They kind of need to get a victory here, and they also need Halliburton to get out of the shooting slump, and he should be able to do so against the Celtics. And regardless, even with how bad he's been shooting, even with everything that I just said, he leads the Pacers in pick and roll points. He leads the Pacers in possessions run as the pick and roll ball handler. He also has the most drives on the team, the most points via drives, and the most field goal attempts out of drives as well. So he has been mildly aggressive. And again, he has the room for improvement from the shooting perspective. The thing with Halliburton, the minutes are going to be the key. Last year, he played 4 games, including the playoffs, in which he played at least 25 minutes against the Celtics. He went over in 2 of those 4 games, and he went over in 7 of 10 if we include the last couple seasons. the majority of those games came after Halliburton hurt his hamstring, and he just wasn't the same player after he got hurt. So hopefully, he's had a ton of time to recover from that. Hopefully he's kind of out of the woods. We can get back to what we saw at the beginning of the year for Halliburton. Regardless, I think he has a good game tonight. 20 plus points for plus 115 is not a crazy ask for Halliburton. And that's all we got in terms of plays. 4 bangers for you guys to lock in. There's a couple guys I'm waiting on lines on, a couple guys that we're waiting on injury news on. So as the day goes on, if I decide to send out plays late, I'll let everybody know via my Dub Club and on Twitter. Speaking of my Dub Club, the last thing I'll mention is that I do have one. If you're unfamiliar, Dub Club is just a platform you can sign up for to get plays sent to you from people like me. $5 a month gets you everything that I'm playing across all sports. NFL, we've been cooking. NBA started slow, but NFL's been great. Everything that I play, the first thing I do is send it out to Dub Club. Gets sent to your phone via text, email, or Telegram. So what I tell people is that if you don't want to watch the YouTube videos, you don't always have time to watch the YouTube videos, or by the time you watch them, the odds change, because unfortunately I can't help whether odds change over the course of the day. That's when I push people towards a Dub Club and say, hey, if you're willing to spend $5 a month, you can get everything sent directly to you immediately. So as soon as I decide what a play is, you're able to lock in the odds that I got. If you're not interested in that, no problem. You can get everything for free on YouTube and on Twitter. I just like to give people the option. And now that's all we got. So remember to like the video, comment, subscribe, and have a good one.